Yes, YouTube, Danester back. As you might guess, I'm going for a bit of a 90s look because I've been tagged in this 90s, not 19, there's only 7, 90s question thing by Rob Gurnaldinho Pays. So basically it's 7 questions about the 90s that I need to answer, and then I tag a couple of people as well. I know Big Game Al got tagged by someone. Matropolis has tagged a few people. Retro Red Steve, I've just watched his, and he's picked Shakespeare's sister, Stay, as one of his picks. Which, oh man, I used to love. I've got that on vinyl. I love that song, and the video is very iconic. But it's not my pick. So, without further ado, this is going to get on my nerves. By the way, I'll go into my first question. I'm going to keep looking up here because I've got the questions right up here. So the first question is, favourite 90s cartoon that you own on DVD, in brackets. Well, I do own it on DVD. I don't have it to hand because it's in the other room. And I don't have the box set. I have individual episodes. Right. It had to be a cartoon that started and ended in the 90s for me. So I couldn't have Turtles. I couldn't have Ghostbusters. I couldn't have Thundercats. I couldn't have He-Man. Because for some reason in the UK, I believe all those 80s cartoons were rerun in the 90s. So there was like a little bit of a blur, and it like hit a couple of generations. But anyway, I decided I needed to pick a cartoon that started in the 90s and ended in the 90s. Honourable mentions, probably be Rugrats. I was thinking Rugrats, but the one that I've decided to pick is X-Men, the animated series. Rogue was my favourite character in that, but looking back now, it's even better now than when it was back then. I probably underappreciated it as a cartoon back then, but it was a brilliant cartoon. And obviously the films, some of the films, Days of Future Past was actually an episode, so that's the reason why I've gone for X-Men, the animated series. Question number 2 is Sega versus Nintendo. That's the worst Welsh accent you'll probably hear. I'm only doing it to take the piss out of Steve, who can't say Sega. So Sega versus Nintendo. Although I did have a couple of items to do with Nintendo. I had the Game & Watch, the Super Mario that I bought up there. I had a Game Boy. Home consoles for me, Sega all day, every day. I had the Master System, I had the Mega Drive. So yeah, but I would argue if I had to pick for the 90s, the console that, or system, I'd say Sony with the PlayStation. Because when the PlayStation came out in the 90s, it kicked ass, and I definitely moved over to PlayStation. But if I got to choose Sega, Nintendo, it is going to be Sega. Favourite console video game? Now, this game was actually released in 1989, but I probably didn't get it till probably 1990, 1991. I can lift it off. And this is absolutely my favourite game on the Master System. And what I put more hours into this than Sonic or anything, and it's Psycho Fox. If you follow my channel, like, you know, when I first started, I didn't have this in the collection, but I did have it in my own personal collection when I was a kid. So I wanted to get it back. Honourable mentions, probably something like World Cup Striker on the SNES. The one with the indoor football, I played a lot of that. Your generic games like your Sonics, your Lemmings, I played a lot of them. But if I had to pick one game on a home console from the 90s, it would be Psycho Fox. Now the next one really stumps me. Favourite comics? Question number 4 is your favourite comics. I didn't read comics as a kid. I used to read the occasional strips of like Garfield or something if that was in this comic magazine. I used to read more magazines, and I used to have the magazines mainly for the posters. So this might be a blast for the past for people, but I used to buy all the while a magazine called The Look In, and it would have music, it would have TV, it would have video games, it would have cartoons, and I was massively into that. I mean, probably up until the early 2000s, I still had my collection like of the Look In comics. I got rid of them all, but the reason I loved the Look In, it wasn't a comic, it was a magazine. The Look In magazine is because I had Sonic posters out there, I had Super Mario posters out there, my favourite wrestlers were out there, pictures from TV shows I used to watch were in there. So I didn't really read comics. Like, I used to get the Beano and the Dandy annuals bought for me, but I never really I was never one to sit down and read comics. I'm still not now, really. So yeah, so I don't know if I'm cheating there, but I'm going to pick the Look In magazine, and I'll try and get a picture up, as I will do with other stuff. So, question number 5. This one's a tougher for me. My favourite pro wrestler now. I was massively into pro wrestling. Leading up to probably about 1995. I think I took 96 out and got back into it the back end of 98 when the very first pay-per-view I watched was the Royal Rumble when the I think that might be the beginning of 98 actually, when the price was on Austin's head to eliminate him and Vince McMahon were on the Rumble. I got back into it then when he was a little bit more edgy, because I'd watched it up until like the new generation come in and Bret Hart was being fucking shoved down our throats, and I really lost interest into it. But then when it became a little bit more edgy with the Attitude Era, I got back into it massively. But there's two wrestlers, one that's going to get honourable mention, but I recognise him more as probably an 80s performer, and that's Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. Absolutely love Mr. Perfect. The Perfect Plex was a brilliant manoeuvre. He was more of a manager come the 90s, although he did have a second rebirth really in the beginning of the 2000s when he had his WWF return until he beat up Brock Lesnar on an airplane. And also he had a run in WCW with the NWO like fucking everyone did. He was in the Four Horsemen briefly, and he the West Texas Rednecks Rap Is Crap was a song they did. But yeah, Mr. Perfect is my honourable mention, and he is one of my all-time faves. But my absolute all-time favourite wrestler, purely because of his arsehole attitude, which actually was a lot more true than we believed, and that's Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. Absolutely love Shawn Michaels. Everything about him, his fucking finishing moves, just like a big kick to the fucking chin, get down. His old arrogance, his fucking looking in the mirror, fucking pretty boy image, fucking everything about him was brilliant, and he was the best performer. Even the shit wrestlers had good matches with him. And if I had to pick one match, I remember his match. Was it at WrestleMania? Was it WrestleMania? I think WrestleMania or SummerSlam. Can't remember the year. And he fought Rick the Model Martel, and the rule was they weren't allowed to hit each other in the face because Sensational Sherry Martel, who was actually Rick Martel's wife at the time, was kayfabe fucking like them both, so they couldn't hit each other in the face, and one of them does hit the other one in the face, and Sherry passes out, and I remember her being carried out, and she got fucking two big arse cheeks just showing they'd been cut out of her trousers. So there's my favourite wrestler, Shawn Michaels. Next one, much like Steve, it says favourite song and music video. Now I'm taking that as two things, because first of all, my favourite song would be Don't Speak by No Doubt. Don't ask me why, I've always loved that song. I used to have it on single, used to play it all the time, still like it to today. Love it when it comes on the radio. Know nearly all the lyrics to it, and Gwen Stefani is quite hot. Music video is a very, well, it's not a funny story, but I remember only really seeing music videos on Box music television you control, which used to be on cable, where you used to ring up and you could pick so many songs, and there used to be a select few songs that used to be on there. I'll give some honourable mentions, mainly Weird Al Yankovic with his parody songs, one of which is Jurassic Park, which I love, which is sung to Someone Left the Cake Out in the Rain, and it's a parody of that song about Jurassic Park. Fat, which is a parody of Bad by Weird Al Yankovic. Amish Paradise, which is a parody by Weird Al Yankovic of Gangster's Paradise. I used to find those sort of videos amusing, and they really stick with me. I can picture them now, but the main one is by a group called Green Jelly, and it's called The Three Little Pigs, and it's like a stop motion animation in plasticine of the story of the Three Little Pigs, sung in quite heavy rock music. And the best bit is you need to go to the end, because there's a cameo by a Hollywood star in plasticine to it, and it's just brilliant. So, it's not the greatest song of all time. It's probably fucking cheesy and my kind of thing. But yeah, Green Jelly, Three Little Pigs would be. And finally, my favourite live action show and episode. Now again, I was big into Nickelodeon when I was a kid. I used to not so much watch the Nicktoons, like the Nick cartoons and stuff like that. More the live action stuff. Like I remember Pete and Pete. Are You Afraid of the Dark was something I always used to watch. Stay up, that was part of my love of the scariness. Keenan and Kel, I used to watch that as well. But the main one I used to like, I'm not even sure if it was on Nick, it may have been on Nick, but it definitely made it to terrestrial TV as well, was called Erie, Indiana, which was about a kid called Marshall who moves to a place called Erie in Indiana, and like all these spooky goings on are. And the actual episode, I had to look up to see what the episode was called Forever Where, and it was actually the pilot episode, the original episode. And basically that episode is his mom hosts a Tupperware party, which is a thing in America where you fucking buy them Tupperware tubs. And basically it was a Tupperware party, but he didn't like the woman who come round who helped host it, so he went to look, and they actually had large full-size ones where people were staying young by locking themselves in Tupperware tubs on a night. Weird. But there were several other shows that I know the guy who later played Gomez Adams, not the one who played M. Bison, the guy who played him in the more recent movies. He was in that series. I'm sure he was as an ice cream man or something like that, or worked at an ice cream parlour. But yeah, that would be my pick, Erie, Indiana. So I'll just do a quick overview of what I picked, and then I will nominate 2 people, which I haven't thought about, which is a bit dangerous by my standards, but I'm used to fucking doing things off the cuff. So 90s cartoon, that's X-Men the animated series. Number 2, Sega or Nintendo. Sega. Favourite console video game was Psycho Fox on the Master System. Favourite comic was The Look-In magazine. Favourite wrestler, Shawn Michaels. Favourite song is Don't Speak by No Doubt / movie video is Green Jelly, Three Little Pigs. Please go and check that out, you might find it amusing. And live action show and episode is Erie, Indiana, Foreverwhere. So now I need to think of 2 people to nominate. Well, the first person I'm going to nominate is James, and that is James from Gamezone BirdRoom, because he's a guy who seems massively into his nostalgia. So I'd like to see James do a video response to this. And the second person, being as he's new to the tubes, I'm going to pick him as well. And that's JW, aka FlashbackTnt. So guys, do a video response. I'll tag previous people who've done it so you can check out their answers. And obviously I'll tag the 2 guys that I've nominated to the video. So hope you've enjoyed that. Change from seeing me live. Hope you're all enjoying the streams. Please go back and watch any that I've done previously and just listen to them, because all the guests are great and I've had a great time doing it. Take it easy, YouTube.